Well, good morning. So here we are. It is episode number 3 of Coffee with Pastor Joseph, and today I want to talk about pleasure. So, making sure that I'm being heard and can be seen. That's good. Looks like everything is functioning correctly here. When we think about pleasure, I don't know what you think about, but I have several things that I really want to talk about today, in particular talking about pleasure. So again, just as a reminder, I'm looking at you here, and then right down here I have my laptop, and right over here I have another monitor that I'm watching. And so by having all three of these in place, I sometimes do look around a little bit. And so anyway, let me know how good the audio is this morning. I have so many different options for mic setups, and so I do different things. And this time I am using one of the onboard mics that I have with this system here. So I just wanted to see how it is. And also I'm in my office, in my house. So upstairs from me, my boys are playing. They are having a good day, and so if you can hear that, I would be curious to know. So let me know how the audio is, and let me know where you're listening from. And yes, I am drinking coffee, and the coffee this morning has it has something to do with the topic of pleasure. So I do find pleasure in my coffee, but there's a story that goes with it. So this particular mug, I was in Seattle, Washington a couple weeks back, and I found myself with an extra couple of hours. I had somehow miscalculated and was headed to the airport, and I was about midway through Seattle traffic when I realized, wait a minute, I still have hours left before I have to be there. And so I pulled off the interstate and I did a quick little search, coffee place. I found a place called Storyville, and I decided to go for it and go get some coffee. And when I got there, I had to do some writing, and so I had my computer with me, and thanks Jacob for letting me know. I appreciate it. And I had my computer with me, so I thought, what better place to go write a story than at a place called Storyville? So off I went to Storyville Coffee, took my laptop with me, and I was working on a film script that we're hoping to actually produce this year. And so I was in there and I bought it was a good latte they made, and then they said, we have this and this is, so I'm telling on myself a little bit here, because they said, if you sign up for our email marketing thing, we'll give you a free mug. And so as you can see, I have the mug. So I signed up, gave them my email, and then I brought the mug home, and I just thought it was so cool for me. I enjoy coffee. It was a moment that I'll remember, and so I enjoy that part of it. Now, it doesn't end there. The story continues, because then they started sending me the email and the email marketing, right? And so pretty soon I find myself reading one of their sales at the beginning of the new year, and I'm like, well, this sounds reasonable. I should try it, and it's a subscription-based thing. So yesterday, in the mail, I got this box, and so I love boxes, and I open it up, and it's from Storyville Coffee. This is a little boy here with an airplane. They have this slogan on the outside, "Love everybody," and it's from right here you can see the Storyville Coffee Company. I think you can see that. And so then inside there were several things. One was the bag of coffee that you would expect, and it said "Love everybody," and then it was prologue, and but they also sent a letter along, and so this is what I thought was just over the top. Okay, marketing these days is awesome. And so oh, hey Jacob Austin, good to hear from you as well. And so this is my letter from Storyville Coffee. It says, "Dear Genius." Now, I don't know about your circles, but in my circles, when someone calls me a genius, I'm never quite sure if they're being sarcastic or if they're for real. It's not a word that we generally use. So anyway, the coffee company is calling me genius. So they say, "Dear genius, may we call you that?" Because it's the name we thought of as we imagined this moment. You, with your fresh Storyville coffee, about to make our dream come true. You fought your way through burnt, old, bitter coffee confusion. Yes, you've paid your dues. You have arrived, my friend, to brewed bliss. Fresh, deep, full roasted happiness. And it is pretty good coffee. But then they keep going. They say, your coffee IQ is off the charts. And then they end it by saying, stay humble, Storyville. So this letter, I read it out loud to my wife, and my Stacy, on the other hand, she doesn't respond to advertising. If she at all thinks someone's trying to sell her something, she backs out of there so fast. You just can't sell her things by trying to sell her things. The reason she buys things is because it makes the most sense, it's economical, it's efficient, and so therefore she will buy something. But she's not just going to buy something because you're trying to sell it to her. So I bought this, and so now I'm on a subscription, and so I guess once a month I'm going to get a bag of coffee from Storyville until I cancel. So we'll see how long I get suckered along thinking that I'm a genius for signing up to Storyville. I mean, I kind of feel cool about it. I enjoyed the process. I enjoy thinking about that little place in Seattle. I enjoy thinking about them roasting beans and sending them to me. So I mean, I guess it's working, but it tickles me how marketing works these days. But I'm talking about pleasure, and let me make sure that we're still connected over here. All right. And one of the things about pleasure that I often think about, something that I have personally experienced, and maybe you've experienced it too, but when you go and you start having fun, um, it, sometimes it's not as good as you thought it would be. For instance, you're planning, you're looking forward to a vacation, you're looking forward to a vacation, you're looking forward. You finally get there, and then you're just doing the fun things, and after a while you think, wow, what if if I was at home, I could be doing this or whatever. Or maybe it's I remember one time with a friend of mine, I went to spend the weekend with him, and so we did everything we knew to do, and as we were doing all the things, we ran out. We ran out of adventures in the woods. We ran out of things to talk about. So we just started watching movies. And I just remember the drugged feeling of watching too many movies in a row and not really enjoying any of them anymore. But we had to keep watching. I mean, what else was there to do? And if you've ever played video games, you might have an inkling of this feeling. It's when you're playing a video game, and I think specifically of some of those a flash game or something, a smaller game where you basically master it. You learn everything there is to know about the game, but you keep playing and you keep being drawn in, you keep wanting to play the thing, and you're really bored, right? But it's got to be fun because it was fun once, and so you keep trying again and you keep trying, and it's just after a while you're there, and I remember the painful story in the news of the one guy who played video games and he was so addicted he just sat there for so long that eventually he died because he didn't go to the bathroom, he didn't drink water, he didn't do anything, and he just ran out right there in front of his computer playing video games. And so there is a certain there's a reason why when people talk about pleasure, they often put it in this context. They say the problem of pleasure. And greater minds than mine have tackled this. What is the problem of pleasure? You and I know the problem of pain. And I think it helps us to think about pain a little bit this way. If we say, okay, so I have, if I'm in pain, if I'm losing at something, if I'm not winning and I feel pain, then I'm able to look at my own life and say, this is a problem. There's something wrong here. This is not right. But when I'm winning and everything is going well, sometimes the very first person that notices the problem is not me. If I'm just winning and winning and winning, sometimes the first person who notices the problem is someone else. They start looking at me and saying, something's wrong. Joseph keeps, he seems to be doing well, but when I talk with him, he's not doing well. Something's not right with him. And sometimes we identify it as pride. Sometimes there's different things that can happen. So there is a problem with pain. There is a problem with say winning, but there's also a problem with pleasure. And I think of I think of there's a Bible verse that we often talk about when we say the problem of pleasures. Let me see if I actually have that one here. I think I do. Yeah, here it's in Hebrews 11, verse 24 to 26. It's talking about Moses, and it says, "By faith, Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward." And so, if you think of the passing pleasures of sin, because that's what it says that he was choosing. He was choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. Now, if you've ever tried different pleasures, like for instance, coffee, something about a cup of coffee I really love. Now, here's my issue with it. If I get up every morning and say, today I'm going to drink coffee, and I just drink coffee, well, anyone can tell you that eventually you get tired of just drinking coffee. What's beautiful about coffee is that in the middle of a busy day, while you're doing something else, you can say, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to get a cup of coffee. And then while you're getting your cup of coffee, you're kind of reviewing in your mind how the day is going. You're planning the next part of the day. Maybe you're sitting down chatting with someone and you enjoy it and it's great, but it has a shelf life. You can't just drink coffee all day long. At least I can't. I'd become as jittery as a squirrel and it'd be a real problem. This is my second cup of coffee for the day, and that'll probably just about do me. I probably won't need any more coffee today. So there is a definite, for me, an expiration date on how much pleasure I can get out of a cup of coffee. It expires. It has a shelf life. And so that is the problem with just about every pleasure, and especially the sinful ones. You can enjoy them for a season and then you run out. And if you've ever been addicted to something yourself or known someone who's addicted, you know that once you run out, you try to go to the next thing and then to the next thing and then to the next thing, and you try to always go up a little bit more, a little bit, and you have to up it. And that becomes a real problem because now you're addicted a little bit and then a little bit more and then a little bit more, and because the pleasure of the pleasure of sin expires and it goes away. And so one of the thoughts that, and for myself, I was trying to, right here on this little SD card, I have I went skiing last week or the week before, I forget, I think it was last week. Anyway, Stacy and I went skiing, and so I took my GoPro along and I filmed for a while, and then Stacy filmed for a while, and she caught me crashing into having a good wipeout. Now, I was going to show that to you, but at the last minute, I didn't quite have time. I thought, well, I need to have this coffee time with you guys, and then I need to go on with some of the work I'm doing. And so I didn't get this clip for you. Maybe another time I'll show you a clip of me wiping out in the snow. It's on there, but if you come to my house, it's easy to show you. So skiing, for instance, if I went skiing every single day, I can guarantee you that sooner or later, the pleasure of skiing would be taken care of and I wouldn't enjoy it. It would become work. However, as it is, every so often I take a break. I pack up a lunch and some hot chocolate or coffee. I get my warm clothes. My wife comes with me. We get in the car and we drive out of the city up into the mountains. And as we're driving up into the mountains, we get to farther and farther from our daily life, and we're getting farther up into the mountains, and then we get to the ski lodge and we go up in there, put on our ski clothes, and we go out, and it's a vacation, it's a break, it's a change of pace, and we love it. We go up the ski lift, we look at each other, we smile, we laugh. Sometimes my wife and I would try to steal a kiss or two. It's kind of tricky on our skis at times, and we go up there and we just have a great time. And last time we were up there, we actually went up all the way to the top of the ptarmigan at Loveland Pass, the Loveland ski slope, and we went all the way up to the top to that little cabin up there. And up there in the roost, or whatever it's called now, we bought some lunch up there. Oh, looks like my battery's getting a little weak here. Let me see what options I have. Oh, I was going to check that battery before I came here, and I didn't. So let's see if I can. Oh, excuse me just a moment here. So I'm going to keep talking because you can hear me. You just can't see me. My wife and I went up there to the top. We got our little lunch and we sat there together and we chatted with other people. And as we were chatting with other people, it was just a great time, right? So sorry about that interruption. Hey Laura, thanks for saying that you love the analogy. I appreciate that. So we had a brief time out there. It seems like every time I do one of these, I have some technology thing going on. So this time I went and got the spare battery. I put it right there. I was going to replace it before I started, then I forgot. So there's problems besides the problem of pleasure. I have the problem of technology too. But back to the tech pleasure thing. The fact that every other day I'm here, I'm working, I'm interacting, and then I take one day and I go and I take a break, change of pace. It is beautiful and I love it. But it also has a shelf life. And honestly, for Stacy and I, by the time we get to about 4 p.m., we've reached the shelf life. We're about done. We're ready to go home. And then it's great. It's amazing how good it feels to go back to the lodge, get all of our stuff together, go back out to our car, and often I'll have a little bit of coffee left in my thermos or something. If I don't, I stop and pick one up at a loaf and jug on the way down, and I'll start driving back down I-70, the same path I was going in the morning and was so delighted to be going. I'm now going the other way, and I'm so delighted to be coming back home because there's a different thread in my life besides just pursuing pleasure. It would not be pleasurable to insist that the mountain is my pleasure and that I would hang on up to the top of the mountain, and at night when they closed the ski slope, I would sneak into some bunches of trees or bushes and hide up there and try to stay on the mountain. That would not be pleasurable. That would be cold and miserable. And so the location is not the pleasure. And so as I think of pleasure, there's just a lot of pieces of this that I have to deal with. And the reason I have to deal with it is because I like pleasure. Now, let me see if I don't have a to-do list here. Well, this one works. Here's a list of an edit of something we're working on, and all the little check marks and things mean one more step of how close we've gotten finished with it. Well, my wife, she gets pleasure out of checking off a to-do list. Yeah, Laura, I think same for me. Vacations have a shelf life of about 2 days, sometimes longer, but I love going on a work vacation, like where I go working and then I take one day off in some other location or 2 or 3 and do something, and I love that. So I then with my here's the problem we have. Stacy and I work together. We work on film projects together, and as we're working on film projects, oh, I see someone peeping through back there. Come on in. Is that you, Eric? Eric and I were making. Hi, Peter. So this is a different pleasure I can tell you about. So you have to come over here so they can see you. There's Peter. So we are actually, for Trail Life, we're having one of those, a Grand Prix where we make a little wooden car. And so this is Peter's. We haven't carved it out yet.
Yep. But we carved out Eric's.
Yeah, we cut out Eric's, and it's actually being glued together. He added a little windshield. And so that is going to be this Saturday. We're going to be having the race. So for Trail Life. So we're excited about that. So, okay. Thanks, Peter. Did you need anything else?
No.
Okay. So I find pleasure in doing things with my sons as well. So going out in the shop and cutting out a little car, and just to run and it's like a Pinewood Derby, like doing that. It's a lot of fun. I find pleasure in that. There is some correlation. So I think I just said this a minute ago. Stacy finds pleasure in checking off things from a list. I find pleasure in warmth, in comfort, in enjoyment, taking a break. Stacy and I want to work together. We're married together, right? So we like to do film projects. And this is where we sometimes really run into it, is she will be working like this. I will be working and I'll have a brilliant burst, and then she's still going. Then I have another brilliant burst, and then she's still going. And so what happens is, if we hit a hard spot, something difficult comes along. Her thing is work harder, work faster, get more things done, and get the endorphins rolling by checking things off. My thing is, okay, it's getting really hard. I'm hitting a lot of resistance. Let me back up a bit and maybe get a cup of coffee, maybe go read a book for a different perspective. Let me take a little bit of time and then I will attack it again. So if you are hearing what I'm saying, if you've ever driven a team of horses or mules, you'll see there's a problem here, because when you're driving a team, you want them both to be walking together at the same speed. If you have one that's doing this, then that's a real problem, and you want them to be together. And so we have been working on how to get Stacy to take some breaks with me and how to get me to keep a little more consistency going so that we don't frustrate each other all the way. So this can be a problem of pleasure. Stacy's working, she looks over and says, "Hey, you're taking a break. Why are you taking a break?" And I'm like, "Well, because I need to be refreshed." And she'll say, "But we will both feel a lot better once this is done." I say, "Yes, but I'll get it done if I first feel better." And so you can see that this could cause some marital, we like to call it intense moments of fellowship that we have in our marriage. And we have them fairly regularly, some of these intense moments of fellowship. But what I really wanted to say with pleasure, and this is the part where I think in many cases we get lost in seeking pleasure, and there's just something odd about it. It's like if we try to capture it and pleasure becomes our primary goal, it just doesn't satisfy. But if we're doing other things, then somehow pleasure keeps showing up. For instance, being a father for me, and then getting to make these little, like these Grand Prix cars for the boys is awesome. It's work. It's not sitting around reading a book or drinking coffee. It's work, but it's with my sons. And so there's another element to pleasure that we sometimes miss, and that's meaning. We've got to have meaning in order for pleasure to work. At least, and actually, this is where Stacy and I can get together, because we like to do things that have meaning. And so she wants to be efficient and get things done. I want to enjoy the experience, to have a nice atmosphere while I'm doing it. And so you get those two together and we say, well, where do they meet? Well, there's one place they meet. The place is the place of meaning. What does it mean? We want to be meaningful. We want to have meaningful experiences, meaningful conversations. And so we can work together, and it works out pretty well. And part of what I really appreciate with the other people that have thought about the problem of pleasure and have talked about it a lot, for instance, Ravi Zacharias, he talks about this a lot. You can actually look it up you can Google it and just look for the problem of pleasure and find Ravi Zacharias. He'll talk about the problem of pleasure, the problem of pain. I think there's one other problem he addresses, but he just talks about some of these issues that we deal with and what to do with it, because pleasure itself is a good thing. It's a gift from God in its right context. And so what I found for myself is that the idea of meaning suddenly ties in with my life call, my life purpose, and why I'm alive. And one of the things, let me see, I have that other Bible verse here. Let me see if I have it coming up here. It's, yeah, there we go. This Bible verse has meant so much to me. It says, "You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." I remember 2004 or 5, God gave this verse to me one summer and just really blessed me with the concept that in his presence is fullness of joy. At his right hand there are pleasures evermore. And I was so grateful to think that even when the pleasures of earth are wearing out, his pleasure is forevermore. And so the pleasure that we find in Christ, I think the way Ravi Zacharias says it, he says that Christ is a perpetual novelty. So he's always got something new. Think of that verse in Lamentations where it says, "Great is thy faithfulness." And it talks about they're new, his mercies are new every morning. Well, that's what Jesus is. And so when my cup of coffee runs out, the cup of God's salvation never runs out. It's always new. It's always something exciting. And so this is where I personally have to find, how do I connect? And just before I end here, so this is there are several pieces to this. First of all, in Jesus, I have constant pleasure, right? It's new all the time. And I can pursue him all my life. And it doesn't matter if I live to be 150 years old. If I pursue him every day with him, he can lead me into pleasant pastures. He can bring me to new pleasures. But if I forget Jesus and just start pursuing the pleasure and try to go do that, then pretty soon I don't have even the pleasure. I don't have the satisfaction. And I become very discontent. And I'm like, and I can do this so quickly where I'm like, well, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that, and yet if I just focus on what's around me and I look, wow, I have so much to be thankful for right here. So here's a few things I do to help me. I have a purpose in my life, a mission. I'm a pastor, I'm a filmmaker, and so some of those requirements, my duties in both of those callings, mean that I have to do the same thing every week over and over and over again. And I can get bored because I like new things. I like exciting things. And so how do I keep from getting bored? Well, I build things in, like even just sitting here and talking with you and drinking a bit of coffee. This to me, I find pleasure in this. I find enjoyment in it. Last night I went and did a chalk drawing for my boys for the Woodland Trails at our local trail life, and I'm one of the leaders there, and so I did a lesson on the Bible and what the Bible is for, and I found so much pleasure in the chalk drawing that I did with it. I love it when I get to draw pictures and tell stories. It's one of the things I absolutely love. But notice how there's meaning to it, and that's where I find the connection always for me. If I have pleasure that has connected to the ultimate meaning of my life, which in my case is a life that's surrendered to Jesus Christ, in his presence I find pleasure forevermore. I want to do what pleases him, and when I'm doing that, I find pleasure. So, for instance, I do things like this to help me find other little bits of pleasure along the way. I got this box the other day, same day, yesterday. So I also have subscribed recently to this, and this is something where if you're a pastor or you just love theology and church history, this is worth looking into. So this has the book of Romans in it, and then they took the everything that for the first 800 years of the church. So from the time Jesus was here until the year 800, the church fathers, whatever they wrote about, they took a lot of people, a big team, some strong computer search engines, and they made a commentary and it's for the whole Bible, but this is for the book of Romans. So they'll have the Bible verse at the beginning, and then whatever the church fathers wrote about that Bible verse is listed in here. So I can read here and find things that people wrote from, 1,500 years ago and see what the church was thinking at that time. And I love it. But here's the bit of pleasure. I could have bought there's 29 of these for the whole Bible. Could have bought the whole set outright. It costs about the same for me to order them, where about once a month I get one of these in the mail. And so I get a little boost of pleasure once a month. And it comes with meaning, and it fits with my life purpose. And so I do those kind of things. I don't do all my ski days in one solid row. I go skiing now, and then another week later I go skiing again. And so in this way, I try to make the pleasure that I'm looking for to serve the meaning and the purpose of the fact that I am a child of God and I'm his. So that's what I do with pleasure. Otherwise, if I just pursue pleasure, it becomes a problem, and I end up not enjoying it, and I end up being, there's no faster way than hating good coffee than by drinking too much of it. If you just start drinking too much coffee, yeah, you'll hate it. But if you drink it appropriately at the right times, it's beautiful. And I'm also praying that as I'm learning to enjoy the proper pleasure things, that I can not just enjoy the things I think of as pleasure, but that I can move closer to where my wife is and enjoy some of the hard things, where I can enjoy checking things off the list. And I'm just praying that I can get pleasure in doing the right things, because that's what Moses was really saying, is to enjoy, to really enjoy choosing the right thing. Why? Because I serve Jesus. And that's what Moses, he was looking farther ahead than just the passing pleasures of sin. So I hope that's been useful for you. thinking about the pleasures, and I'd be glad to hear from you what your pleasures are, what you enjoy doing, what brings refreshment to you. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and we're going to have I'm going to take a bit of coffee, and I'll see you next time. So thanks for tuning in and listening to me talk a little bit about pleasure.